All right, guys, it's time to do the brakes on this E90 BMW. We're gonna do pads, rotors, pad wear sensors, wheel speed sensor. We're gonna do everything, so stay tuned. Let's get started. So I always jack my car up on 4 jack stands. I just think that's the safest way. So every brake job should begin here under the hood. You should pop this cover off and take a look at the level of your brake fluid, and you see how close it is to the max line. So hopefully you can see in my case, we are not quite at the max line, but we are pretty close to it. Take a look at the amount of pad we have left. That's actually a lot. You know, it seems like these pads were just done, but you see this? The rotors were not changed when the pads were changed. Now, why is that an issue? Well, when you have brand new pads, okay, all the way around, that's when you should make sure that the brake fluid is filled up to the max. And as the brake pads wear down, that level is supposed to drop. But what happens sometimes is somebody will come along and refill it to the max when your brake pads are almost worn out. And then when the guy, you know, your brake guy goes to, when your mechanic goes to change your brakes, or you go to change your brakes, he pushes the pistons back into the calipers, and that level will rise up, that brake fluid will rise up, and it'll overflow easily. And if brake fluid gets on paint, it's gonna start to eat the paint away. That'll cause rust problems later. So you wanna check and see if your brake fluid is overfilled. And if it is, you wanna suck some of it out with a turkey baster. And it actually looks like we have quite a bit of rear pads left as well. These rotors don't look as bad. I perhaps didn't need to do the rear brakes at all, but for the purposes of video, we are gonna do them. But I don't think I'm gonna need to remove any brake fluid. An alternative to, if you don't have a turkey baster, is you can just crack the bleed screws, which is this guy right here. You just loosen that, get a little piece of plastic tubing and lead that down into like an old plastic soda bottle or something. And you crack that loose, and then you push the piston back into the caliper, and the fluid will go into that container, and instead it won't overflow out of your brake reservoir. And some people think that is a better way to do it. Some people don't like pushing the brake fluid back up the lines and into the reservoir, because that could kind of cause any junk that might be in the lines to go back into the brake master cylinder. You know, it's an age-old debate over which one is better. I would probably say if you can crack your bleed screws, if you're not in a really rusted area, you should do it. And if you are, then just push the pistons back in the caliper. Honestly, people all over the country, all over the world do it both ways every day, and I'm sure it's just fine. Pick your poison. Let's take a look at the parts we're gonna need for today's video that have been graciously provided by my longtime sponsor, OEM Bimmer Parts. We have 4 brake discs all the way around. We have pads right here. Now this is the OEM brand, Jurid for the pads and then Pagid for the rotors. Now, there's 2 ways you can go with your pads. You can go with the regular OEM stuff, which is what I did, or you can go with the ceramic stuff, which, you know, I guess offers, you know, better stopping power, but what it also offers is a lot of dust, a lot of brake dust. My front wheels are always super dirty. No matter how often I clean them, they just get so dirty so quickly, and the rear ones do not. So I imagine when they did this pad slap, they put ceramics on the front and just left the OEM ones on the rear, because they were probably done at different times. But yeah, I'm going with just OEM stuff, not ceramic. I'm sure they're gonna stop just fine. I mean, these things are comically oversized. I mean, look at this. This is just a massive, massive brake rotor compared to the previous generation. The car didn't get any heavier. I think what happened is the wheels got a little bigger, so they gotta upsize the brakes to match. But all right, guys, we're gonna start on the front here. First things first, we're gonna pull out this pad wear sensor. That just pops right out, and it hooks through the bleed screw. There's a little rubber cap up here on the bleed screw. Unhook that, and there you go. Your pad wear sensor is loose. Now, if it didn't rub up against the pads, if this didn't go so far that it contacted the brake rotor and it started to wear this away, you can just reuse this. You really don't have to replace it. I don't see the point in replacing it unless you've actually damaged it. So I'm gonna get this clip out of here. This clip that's right here on the front, all you do is kind of pop up like that, and watch out, because it's gonna go flying. It might hit you in the face. Safety glasses, I should be wearing mine, duh. Okay, well, one thing that we want to do first is actually want to get this pin loose and out of here. And it's kind of a little more convenient to do that while this is still on here, because we're going to cause this to turn. As we turn the screw, this wants to turn, and you can stop that just by putting your screwdriver in here and that kind of stops it up against the caliper. By the way, I got the new long high-speed Milwaukee impact ratchet, and I love it. You can use it to just do everything on this car. When it's pinched, it'll hold, and you can just do that. So now our screwdriver, we actually have to get these caps off, and I really want to show you, so let's go handheld. Okay, so back here behind the caliper, you see there's this little black, do it this way, pop that little cap off, and inside there is a 7mm Allen, you need a 7mm Allen wrench or socket. So that's what I have right here. And that is gonna go right here, okay? Just like that. There's one on the top and then there's another one on the bottom. These are the caliper slide pins. We're just gonna need to remove those in order to remove the caliper. The design of this is actually a little unusual, and you are gonna need to, if you just wanna take the caliper itself off, which is this part right here, the caliper bracket is this inner part here. So if you wanna take the caliper off, the caliper itself off, we're gonna need to compress the piston into the caliper first, because this area will contact on this area right here and you will not be able to get it off. So you need to actually compress the piston in first. And in order to do that, you actually need like a really long bar clamp. There is another way actually. We could stick a pry bar in right here and just kind of pry against the thing right here, which is essentially what I'm doing. Hopefully we can see that good. So stick a screwdriver in there, pry against it like this. That's one way to do it. It's actually a pretty good way to do it, to be honest with you. Do that, pry. You're not gonna get it 100% compressed, but you're gonna get it enough that, see, now we actually have clearance right here. Now we're gonna be able to get the caliper off. So that's what you wanna do. So I'm gonna go ahead, take the other caliper pin, I'm gonna take both caliper pins out. So here is the other cover right here. I'm gonna pop that out, and now we can go ahead and get both of these pins out. So an alternative way of compressing the caliper, if you don't like doing this method, like maybe you're just doing a pad slap, which I don't recommend, and you don't want to pry up against the actual rotor because you don't want to damage it, is to use a really long clamp like this. You know, get it on the back there and then get it on the front there, and that will definitely compress your piston into your caliper really effectively. So that's basically the method. This thing is so huge and wide. My normal one is not long enough. I needed to grab this extra long one. You know, most people do not understand how to use a tool like this. They think they should push the button and the tool should have enough torque to get things loose. It just doesn't work that way. The reason it's especially long like this is it gives you leverage to break it free, and then you use the electric part to spin the bolt out. That's how they work. That is how you use them. Take the caliper pin out all the way because we're going to clean it and lube it correctly. They're almost always lubed incorrectly. Okay, there's our other pin. Now the lower one is longer than the upper one. See, so before this was, the piston was out, so this caliper was back like this, and like I said, I couldn't get it out because it's hitting up against right there. But now that we've loosened it, we've allowed it to come forward, and now we can remove it, take it off. Now you want to hang this caliper bracket. You don't want to just let it hang by the brake hose, the rubber brake hose, because that could cause damage, this rubber brake hose back here. So you want to hang it. You want to get a bungee cord or string or anything. I have this little S-hook that I use. And I hook it on the caliper up here. I'll show you where. So just like that. Hook it underneath there and hook it on the caliper. All right, now we have to get the caliper bracket off, and that's held in with 2 bolts here and here. They're 18mm, and that's also where this tool comes in handy. You can pretty much do the whole brake job with just this one tool. Yes, it's not super fast, but the thing is, if any tool that gives me a little bit longer, more leverage and stuff is just kind of even harder to use. It's just how these are, unless you want to go impact, which I could. Well, this one is on a little bit too tight. It's a little bit over tightened. I was able to do the other side with just that tool, but this one is proving to be too difficult. So I do have to get an impact for this one. All right, there we go. Can't win against the mid torque. Grab one of your lug nut, your lug bolts, put your safety glasses on, grab your hammer and start whacking. Ooh, also your ear protection as well. That's really what you want. So it's a good practice to clean this up. You see how it's all rusty right here? That's why it was difficult to get the brake rotor off. Even in California, which is outer space compared to the rest of the country, this still rusts. So we're gonna clean it up. It's just best practice. And to do that, you wanna get one of these little wire wheels like this at Harbor Freight. They're just a couple bucks. And you can just chalk it in your drill and clean this thing right up. I have this high-speed die grinder thing, but you know, anything works. And the reason you need the safety glasses is because these little things will fly right off of here, especially if you're using something high speed like this, and they will poke you right in the eye. So safety glasses. Alrighty, we're good to go there. You want to take your brake lube and put a little bit on there. That will keep the new rotor from rusting on. It'll be a lot easier to change next time. You only need to do this area here where you see me doing it. You don't really need to do this surface around here. Typically, you don't have rust on problems there. It's always the corner, this this area right here, this radius. It's always this one right here. These new ones get super dirty real fast, so be careful. Have your screw ready. It does not need to be super tight. It's just there to hold it on, you know, until you get the wheel on. Doesn't hurt to clean your caliper a little bit. You can see the contact areas where the pads hit it, here, 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 and here. So just clean those a little. I don't really have any rust on these. It's more just brake dust. So that's all you need. This guy on. Oh, that thing is super fast, man. It's great. So these are torqued to 81 foot-pounds, which is a little difficult. I probably need to stand up. Okay, now we can do it. All right, let's get the old pads out of there. This one does not want to come out. Why is that? Oh, because it's grabbed and cocked on the side. All right, and that one was just fine. Interesting. So you have pad contact areas here and here, which you can kind of clean, maybe. Hit that with a little bit of the caliper grease. This is the one that I use, by the way. It's good stuff. Now, it might look like the piston is all the way compressed, but it actually isn't. It can go in just another couple millimeters. If you have a big channel lock, you can do that. You can grab it. I don't like doing that because that might mar up the surface of the caliper. If you're gonna do that, take your old one, take your old pad and put it right there. And then you can do, you know, big, you know, vice grips or whatever, not vice grips, but adjustable pliers, big adjustable pliers. You can squeeze it if you got that. You can use the clamp that I showed you earlier, or if you have one of these, you can use this, which, let's see if I have this on the right way. If you haven't seen one of these before, it just expands like that. It's for doing like 4 piston calipers where you got to squeeze both calipers in at the same time, or both pistons in, I should say, or all 4 pistons. So it just lets you do it evenly. So There, I just needed to go that little bit more. And you do need to go all the way when you're doing fresh pads because you need that bit of clearance. Put some grease on the areas where the pads are gonna, the backs of the pads are gonna contact, which is the surface of the piston right here, the face of the piston, just this narrow area right there. And then you can see the metal area on the end of the caliper bracket right here. And you just go ahead and put a little bit of grease there. I don't think that the pads are going to slide around on this design because of those springs, those like fingers on the backs of the pads. But you know, we do these things anyway, just cause. So this one, the 3-fingered one, that one goes here. Let's do this one. There. Yes, I mean, there's no need to lube up the whole back surface of this with grease. You just need to, that's why I like lubing up the caliper itself. If you lube up the whole back of the pad, it's all the areas that don't touch anything are just gonna collect dust, and you know, no point in doing that. There we go. Now, just a little bit more grease. You could put it on the caliper pads, it's themselves, or you can put it on the little ears right here. I guess I'll just go for the ears. Basically, you want to grease anywhere where there's metal to metal contact, and that's why I was pointing out these areas here where they're, you know, the shiny areas, essentially the areas that don't have brake dust, because there's metal constantly pressing against one another and it doesn't let the brake dust settle there. So that's how you know the contact areas, and that's how you know what to grease. This is about it. We're ready to go back on. That's pretty much it. Now we're going to clean up our caliper pins. Best way for me right now, because I think I didn't bring a towel, is to just do this. Works pretty well. Lube your pins up. You don't need to get a lot. This is way more than I need. Okay, I think what I'll do is just kind of use that to lube up the other one. All right, good enough. Shove those in. You don't want to use like a normal brake grease on those, because normal brake grease kind of dries out. You want to use something that has silicone in it. Silicone won't dry out, and that is what this one has. A little bit of silicone. If you just have normal brake grease, then use silicone paste, which is sold as dielectric tune-up grease, or spark plug grease. That's what that is. It's just silicone paste. That's what you should use. Those you can just kind of hand tighten. They don't need to be super, super crazy tight. We are going to tighten them now. What I'm saying is you don't need a torque wrench. You don't have to do this exactly. It's just make them good and tight. But don't go crazy, especially if you have a really long thing like this. You know, right about until they stop turning. And you're good. Pop those caps back in. And now we just need to put the new sensor in just because we have it. Like I said, probably unnecessary. So hopefully we can see this goes to this little bracket back up here. So you just push it out. And now it's over here on the side. Let's get you a view of that. All right, so you see right here, it hooks in right there. And then there's this little cover thingy back here. You can see right there. And there's just 2 snaps on the bottom like that. And then it'll pop up, and that protects the little sensor inside. The 2 sensors. One is for wheel speed, the other is for pad wear. So right there, that is our pad wear sensor. So I need 2 hands to pop it out. I think they did change it last time. It looks newer. Cool. Match the length on the new one. Looks like the rear one is longer. So there you go. Match the length with the new one. New one, yeah, same length. New one plugs in. The end goes here. Yeah, right in that little bracket. So here you can see it fits in this little slot right there on the pad itself. So make sure you get it seated all the way. And now you can put this through. And just hook it through. So there you go, hooked through, leading up to right there, going through, around, and then eventually into the little box back there. Final step is this guy, a little spring. So that one goes here like this. And we want to hook it down underneath there and there. So it goes down, the little ears go down underneath like that. But then you have the center, which needs to be pried up and over like that. And then it fits inside of a little slot like that. And these two little nubs kind of locate. That's it. So we have to thank this week's sponsor, which is OEMBimmerparts.com. They've been a long-time sponsor of my channel, and for good reason. I really love these guys. I love their website. It's really well categorized. They have fast 2-day shipping because they have multiple warehouses across the country, so they're going to get your parts to you really quickly. Like I said, the website is very well categorized. It's just the most popular repair parts that you're going to need for all the late model BMWs. It's easy to find things. It's you know, they always stock the stuff that you really need, and they do offer some. It's mostly the OEM parts, but they do offer some aftermarket parts, but quality aftermarket parts. So you don't need to worry about what you're getting. It's usually one OEM option and one aftermarket option if you want to go that route. So I really love these guys. I would appreciate it if you would check them out. That's OEMBimmerparts.com. All right, guys, well, the rears are very similar to the fronts. The only real difference is the size of the sockets, really. All right, let's get this off first. Okay, so now we deal with the spring. This one, obviously, it's a little bit different of a spring. You can push up, and then we got to pry it out, so. Push outward so that the bottom of this hook kind of gets out like that. Same with this one right here. See, that's a little more difficult for me. There we go. Cool, so now we want to compress the piston and the caliper. So a little screwdriver trick, you just kind of get it in there and pry backward. So what I'm doing is I'm prying this way, so I'm sort of prying against the pad and or the rotor itself. So try to do that as far as you can. You probably won't be able to get it all the way, but you'll get it most of the way. Cool. So now we're pretty loose. We'll get the sensor off. Again, I think this sensor looks reusable to me, so that is a possibility for you. So now we just got to get those slide pins undone. All right, so let's pry off these little covers. There's two. So we can use this tool to get off the top one. I think the bottom one, we don't have enough room maybe. Yeah, this thing is at just such an angle that we don't have quite the room, at least with this tool. Perhaps the 1/4" one would work, but I grabbed this one. This is a manual socket. And our caliper falls right off. We'll go ahead and hang it up like that, and then hang it from this spot right up here. Take the old brake pads out. So the caliper bracket bolts, they are 16s on the rears instead of 18s like on the front. just want to make sure that you guys are getting a good view of this. All right, take our bracket off. And now we need to get this thing loose. Remember, thread in one of your lug studs. Put your ear protection on. Man, look at how that dented up. And this is a brass hammer too. This is cheap metal, really bad, not high carbon. So I'm really glad I'm changing it. They cheaped out on these rotors. The other side looked good. This one has a groove right here. I'm glad that I'm changing them in the end. So it looks like the last guy to do these brakes did put a little bit of, I think, silver brake grease right around this area here. But you can see it, he didn't put it on, you can see where the rust area is. So he didn't put it all the way. And yeah, it was still a little difficult to get that rotor off. Wear a dust mask for this one. Get these pins out and clean those up too. You want to pay particular attention to this area right here. This is where most of the sliding happens, so that needs to be clean. All right, new lube right here. Lube the whole area. It's not so much lube as it is just protectant, It's like a rust protectant. If you have some other kind of rust protectant, they make something called fluid film, which they use back east. If you have that, I'm sure that would be just as good because it's not about lubrication, it's about rust protection. The rears here, they have brake shoes right here. These are the emergency brakes. And this is the adjuster right up here. As you see, right here, that's the adjuster. So you move it one way to move it out and the other way to move it in. And basically you need to adjust things. This is kind of your only chance to adjust it because I believe there's no hole to access it from the backside. So you kind of have to do this adjusting before you put everything together. So what you do is put this on, right? Look at this. This side actually came with a new bolt in the box. I didn't see that in any of their other boxes. Maybe I should go back and look. Maybe I missed it. So we'll do this. We will put this on and see if we can spin it here. See if we can feel too much drag from those shoes before the emergency brake's on. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to put the emergency brake on and I'll just feel, is this thing grabbing? Are the shoes grabbing? Or can I still move this? If I can still move it, it needs some adjustment. So let me do that. Let me go put the emergency brake on. Okay, it's on. It's definitely grabbing. So I think we're good. I don't think we need any adjustment. But like I said, if you do need that adjustment, you just go ahead and move the adjuster a little bit. Try to put the thing back on. If it's really difficult to get back on, you've gone too far. So back it off a little bit and get it to where you're just able to get it on. And it's not too difficult. This, whatever coating this is, some kind of zinc or something, it picks up dirt like that, just so easy. So, and it's almost impossible to clean off with brake clean. If you're not using these OEM rotors, by the way, you're gonna have old style rotors that are going to be covered with an oil called cosmoline, which you do need to wash off with brake clean before you install them because you don't want oil contaminating the braking pads. But in this case, they have some sort of a coating that looks a lot like zinc. It's probably not exactly zinc, but it's something similar. And it comes off when you start braking, when you bed the brakes in. So you don't need to clean anything off with brake clean. All right, let's get our caliper bracket back installed. Okay, so this one is 50 foot-pounds. I've already got this set for 50. There it is. Now for this, we wanna compress this thing in all the way, piston, obviously. I like this little tool. It's super handy, easy to use. I'll throw a link in the description if you're interested. This has been the one piston caliper compression tool thing that I kind of keep using, I think. I have some other styles that I just never get the opportunity to use. Although the one style I have, I could have used on this side. So I'm just gonna put the brake lube on this first, because these pads are a little weird to get in. This one has a lot of, it has these little fingers and all that stuff, and it's actually somewhat difficult to get in. Okay, I made that look easy. The reason you don't want to put the fluid on the ear of the caliper first, because if you're having trouble, you might touch it you might touch the face of the pad on the brake grease and contaminate it. So it's best to wait until you get it in there, and then you can put the grease on. Remember to get it on these little ears right here. Boom, here, here, and here, like that. And we're gonna put our pad right in there, like that. And then don't forget, ooh, too much. These little ears right here. Ears, 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 ears. Just like that. Lube up the little slide pins. Yeah, you only need it on the little front half of it. Always faster. Let's get our covers, then we'll get our spring. And the spring, if we can find it, spring's right here. Don't forget that spring. Push it in like that, it's good to go. Okay, the very next thing we're gonna do is go pump the brake pedal and make the piston pop out and tighten up the brakes. You're gonna be in for a state of shock if you don't do that and you go to back out, because your brakes are not gonna work. So make sure you do that. So, I'm not gonna forget to tighten that up, even though it doesn't really need to be. Make sure you don't forget, if this is hanging somewhere, make sure you don't forget this thing. All right, now for our sensor, pad wear sensor. Again, I'm only changing it for the sake of video. I probably wouldn't otherwise. Looks like there was a zip tie right here. I think the last guy to do this probably did that, because that's probably not factory. Some kind of a plastic connector. I'll bet there was another one here and it broke off, and that's why it was replaced with a zip tie. Yeah, it kind of opens up from the back side here. So it contains both the wheel speed sensor and the pad wear sensor. So just kind of got that off. There's a couple of them. So you just sort of open them up like that. Just like that. I'm sure they're incredibly delicate, so be careful if you want to keep them. The sensor that we're changing is the bottom one. So it looks like the connector box is hidden behind this paneling here, so we got to get this off. A couple of 8s and 10s. And another one up here. Those are 8s. Yep, that's good. That'll get us access. Let me move this out of the way so we can see. Okay, just pull this guy out, same as the front. Bottom goes in there, top goes in there. I'm sure there was a cover to this thing. right, I'll put a new zip tie. I got one. And that is it. That finally is it. Anybody was wondering, yes, I found those new bolts in each of the boxes. I'll go and install those. The very next thing you want to do is pump your brakes. Seat the pistons into the calipers, get all the pistons popped out. That way you will have brakes when you go to back out of your driveway. So it is very important at this point that you properly bed your brakes in. The procedure for that is go out and drive around in your neighborhood and go about 30 miles an hour and slow down really rapidly. And don't come to a complete stop, just keep going. Just go 30 miles an hour, slow down, 30 miles an hour, slow down. Repeat that about 5 or 6 times, and then bump it up to about 50 miles an hour if you can. Go 50 miles an hour, slow down really rapidly. Don't come to a complete stop, just keep going. Do that about 3 or 4 times. You're basically, if you see a little bit of smoke coming from your front brakes, that you're right at about the right place. Pull over to the side of the road, shut off the engine, let the brakes cool down. You are now bedded in. So again, it's 30 miles an hour, slow down rapidly, do it about 5 to 7 times. 50 miles an hour, slow down really rapidly, do it 2, 3, 4 times, however many times you need to start seeing, kind of some smoke coming off your brakes. I mean, not like really bad, but if you see just a little bit kind of coming off, or if you smell, if it smells like something's burning, pull over to the side of the road. You kind of hit the right spot. Let the brakes cool down. You're nicely bedded in. You can go drive home. So I'm gonna go do that right now, and we'll be all good. If you're interested in getting a set of all these parts to do your brake job, check out the links in the description. I really appreciate that. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. I'm the 50s Kid. Thanks a lot for watching.